Study section 5, the male reproductive system. Introduction. People in your environment are categorized into male and female in most cases, and each need the other in order to bear children, which is called reproduction. The interesting aspect of this reproduction is a system in which different organs operate to make this process possible. The male reproductive organ is different from the female reproductive organ. Hence, you will study both in the course, but in different study sections. In this study section, therefore, you will be learning about the reproductive anatomy, structure of the male, the formation of the sperm cell and its pathway, and also you will study the accessory glands and other secondary sex organs of the male. Learning outcomes. At the end of this study section, you should be able to 1. Describe the external genitalia and anatomy of the testes, scrotum, and penis. 2. Draw and label the accessory glands and other secondary sex organs of the male. 3. Identify the pathway of sperm cell from its formation to ejaculation. The external genitalia and the anatomy of the testes. Unlike the female reproductive system, most of the male reproductive system is located outside the body. The external genitalia occupy the perineum and a diamond-shaped region marked by the pubic symphysis, ischial tuberosities, and causes. Each testis is oval, about 4 cm long, 2.5 cm in diameter, and weighs 10 to 14 grams. Its anterior and lateral surface is covered by the tuniccle vaginalis. The testis has white fibrous capsule called tunicle ambogyneal. Connective tissue septal divide the organ into wedge-shaped. Each lobule contains somniferous tubules in which the sperm are produced. A seminiferous tubule has a narrow lumen lined by a germinal epithelium. The epithelium consists of several layers of germ cells in the process of becoming sperm and a much smaller number of sustentacular centrally cells and promotes their development. Tight junctions between adjacent substancular cells form a blood-testis barrier, BTB, which prevents protein and other larger molecules in the blood and intercellular fluid from getting into the germ cells. Between the seminiferous tubules are clusters of interstitial Leydig cells, the source of testosterone. The testes are also secrete small amount of estrogen. Pathway of the sperm in a diagram. 2. Sperm move through each vas deferens and into the urethra. 3. Sperms leave the body through the urethra, which passes through the penis. 1. Sperm are produced in testes and are sorted in the epididy. Functions of the male reproductive organ. The function of the male reproductive system is to perform the following function. 1. To produce, maintain, and transport sperm, male reproductive cells. 2. To serve as protective fluid, semen. 3. To discharge sperm within the female reproductive tract during sex. 4. To produce and secrete male sex hormone responsible for maintaining the male reproductive system. Structure of the scrotum. The testes are contained in a pedular sac. The scrotum. The left testis is usually suspended lower than the right, so the two are not compressed against each other between the tines. The skin of the scrotum has pale hair, sebaceous glands, rich sensory innervations, and somewhat darker pigmentation than skin elsewhere. The scrotum is divided into right and left compartments by an internal medium septum, which protects each testis from infections of the other one. The location of the septum is externally marked by a seam called the perineal raphe. This spermatic cord passes up the back of the scrotum, then anterior to the pubis, and through the inguinal ring into the linguinal canal. It contains a sperm duct called the ductus deferens and other structures that descended with the testis as it passed through the inguinal canal. The aforementioned blood and lymphatic vessels, testicular nerves, and so forth. A diagram of testes located at different levels. The scrotum has three mechanisms for regulating the temperature of the testes: dartos muscle, cremaster muscle, pampiform plexus. Dartos muscle, fonica dartos. When it is cold, the dartos contract and draw the testes closer to the body to keep them warm. When it is warm, the dartos relaxes and the testes are suspended further from the body. Cremaster muscle reflexively contracts when it is cold and relaxes when it is warm. Elevating or lowering the testes are needed. Pampiniform plexus is an extensive network of veins from the testes. These veins converge to form the testicular vein. Without the pampiniform plexus, warm arterial blood would hit the testes and inhibit spermatogenesis. The pampiniform plexus, however, prevents this by acting as a countercurrent heat exchanger. Diagram of the male reproductive system. The scrotum performs certain functions, which can be categorized mainly into two. They are control of temperature to protect sperm, protect testes, and guarantee maturing of sperm before discharge. Control temperature to protect sperm. Biologists believe that the primary function of the scrotum is to maintain the desired temperature for the sperms. They should consistently be at a temperature that is slightly cooler than the rest of the body. The ideal scrotum temperature in humans is around 35 to 36 degrees Celsius, which is 95 to 96.8 degrees Fahrenheit. When this temperature is compared to the normal body temperature, 37 degrees Celsius, which is 96.6 degrees Fahrenheit, the slight decrease becomes obvious. This temperature is necessary because any higher temperature will cause the sperm count to go down. The scrotum is able to control the temperature by changing the distance between the testicles and the abdomen. When the room temperature is warm, the scrotum moves the testes further from the abdomen. This increases the amount of surface area that is exposed and therefore helps any excess heat dissipate faster. When the temperature is cold, the scrotum will move the testicles closer to a person's abdomen. Movements in either direction are controlled by the relaxation and contraction of the cremaster muscle within the abdomen as well as the dartos fascia within the scrotum. Protect testes and guarantee maturing of sperm before discharge. Another function of the scrotum is to help protect the testes. This in turn makes sure that the sperm within will have sufficient time to mature before they are discharged. Some biologists have pointed out that if the testes were found in the abdominal cavity instead of their actual location, they will experience regular changes in terms of pressure within the abdomen. These changes in pressure would be due to the abdominal muscles contracting and relaxing. The problem is that if this were to occur, the testes would empty much faster, so the sperm would not have enough time to fully mature. Anatomy of the penis. The penis serves to deposit semen in the vagina. Half of it is an internal root and half is the internal visible shaft. The external portion is about 8 to 10 cm long and 3 cm in diameter when flaccid, non-erect. The typical dimension of an erect penis are 13 to 16 cm long and 4 cm in diameter. Distally, the penis ends in a swollen head called the glans, which has the external urinary meatus as the tip, the proximal margin of the corona. Diagram of the anatomy of the penis. Penile anatomy. The penis consists mainly of the cylindrical bodies called erectile tissue, which fills with blood during sexual arousal and accounts for its enlargement and erection. A single erectile body, the corpus spongiosum, passes along the ventral side of the penis and encloses the penile urethra. Dilates at the distal end to fill the entire glans. On the dorsal side of the penis, there is a pair of corporal canvamosa. Each is entrenched in a fibrous tunicle and bigynial, and they are separated from each other by a medium septum. All three erectile tissue contains numerous tiny blood sinuses called leukinale. The partitions between leukinale, called trabeculale, are composed of fibroconnective tissue and smooth trabecular muscle. In flaccid penis, tonus of the trabecular muscle collapses the leukinale, which appear as tiny slits in the tissue. At the body surface, the penis turns 90 degrees and continues inward as the root. The corpus spongiosum terminates internally as a dilated bulb. The corporal cavernosa diverge like the arms of a Y. Each arm, called a crus plural, crural, and attaches the penis to the pubic arc, ischiopubic ramus, and perineal membrane. Diagram: the accessory glands of the male reproductive organs. There are three sets of accessory glands in the male reproductive system. They are the seminal vesicle, prostate gland, moboretral gland. Seminal vesicle. The seminal vesicle are a pair of glands posterior to the urinary bladder. A seminal vesicle is about 5 cm long. The secretory portion is a very convoluted dot with numerous branches that form a complex labyrinth. The dot empties into the ampulla of the ductus deferens. The secretions of the seminal vesicles constitute about 60% of the semen. The seminal vesicle produces a sugar-rich fluid, fructose, that provides sperm with a source of energy to help them move. The fluid of the seminal vesicles makes up most of the volume of a man's ejaculatory fluid or ejaculates. Prostate. The prostate surrounds the urethra immediately inferior to the urinary bladder. It measures about 2 by 4 by 3 cm and is an aggregate of 30 to 50 tubuloginal glands enclosed in a single fibrous capsule. These glands empty through about 20 pores in the urethral walls. The stoma of the prostate consists of connective tissue and smooth muscle like that of the seminal vessels. The thick milky secretion of the prostate contributes about 30% of the semen. Boboretral carpal glands. They are brownish, spherical glands, about 1 cm in diameter. During sexual arousal, they produce a clear, slippery fluid that lubricates the head of the penis in preparation for intercourse. Perhaps more importantly, though it neutralizes the acidity of residual urine in the urethra, which could be harmful to the sperm. Describe the pathway of sperm cells from its formation to ejaculation. The testes are where sperms are manufactured in the scrotum. The epididymis is a tortuous coiled structure topping the testes, and it receives immature sperm from the testes and stores it several days. When ejaculation occurs, sperm is forcefully expelled from the tail of the epididymis into the different ducts. Sperm then travel through the different ducts through up the spermatic cord into the pelvic cavity, over the urethra to the prostate behind the bladder. Here, the vas deferens joins with the seminal vesicle to form the ejaculatory duct, which passes through the prostate and empties into the urethra. When ejaculation occurs, rhythmic muscle movement propels the sperm forward. Describe the pathway of sperm cell from its formation to ejaculation. Efferent ductus, epididymis, ductus vas deferens, ejaculatory duct, urethra. Study section summary. In this study section, you have learned that 1. The testis contains seminiferous tubulus in which sperm are produced. 2. The scrotum regulates the temperature of the testis through the dartos muscles, tonical dartos, cremaster muscles, and the papiniform plexus. 3. The sperm consists of 3 erectile tissue, which are spongy and contain lacunae. 4. There are 3 sets of accessory glands, namely the seminal vesicle, prostate, and boboretral glands. 5. After leaving the testis, the sperm travels through a series of spermatic ducts to reach the urethra. End of study section 5. Thanks for listening.